Hey, it's me, Cannabis Industry Lawyer, here with another of our How to Cannabis segment. And today we're going to be talking with Miggy about, hey, Miggy, what types of contracts do you need in your cannabis business? Toward the beginning of it. I mean, one of the first ones that you might enter into when you're on your entrepreneurial journey to becoming a licensed cannabis operator.
Am I a grower or am I a store?
It really doesn't matter, actually. You're probably just an entrepreneur who wants either side of the equation.
So see, isn't this like the fundamental business 101? Wouldn't like the money be the first thing that I want to worry about? Like,
Yes, you'd want to worry about the money and then the sources. And so very often, one of the first contracts that you may see when you're discussing business with new people would be like a non-disclosure agreement. And so like a non-disclosure agreement usually starts, or a non-circumvention is then if whom you are talking to has knowledge and experience in the industry that may also be proprietary or at least confidential. And those are the types of contracts that you very often see at the very front end, where people are getting in and then they're turning to experts and consultants and industry advisors and people that, walk around with briefcases chained to their hands in trench coats, and they don't say nothing. Right. Secretive proprietary shit.
Well, so operations.
Pardon?
Well, you the reason why you have NDAs too is to protect like the operations, the internal workings, SOPs, right. Your people want to know what the secret sauce is. How do I get this thing that people go to work so happy, besides one? I mean, a lot of the stuff is already out there. A lot of the stuff is common knowledge, right? Pay your people good, treat them with respect.
Have a decent culture.
Have a decent culture. Listen to them. Get the feedback. You want to have the best product, whatever that is. Whether you're making the plant itself or gummies, you want to have the best product at the end. So there's a way to get there. It's funny you brought this up too, because I was thinking how like the other day you once were like, I don't know how to explain what you do, right? Like what I do for a living, and it's kind of hard for me to do too for a while because you went to school for a lawyer. You went to law, you understood law, you did business, and then you became a business lawyer and right. In turn in banking and all that stuff. Whereas I went this long route of like military, every certificate I could learn and self-education type things. And then get into the industry I'm in, which is technology. But also it's quality control. It's GMP. I've been in manufacturing for almost 15 years now. Like working in manufacturing itself is a whole thing, and especially quality of manufacturing. So many components, and those contracts in itself too are kind of like NDAs. When I walked into a facility, I couldn't be like, oh, I saw all this at Intel. Or I saw all this.
You may have actually been subject to NDAs or other contractual provisions between those parties regarding confidentiality, as they don't only have to apply in an NDA or a non-disclosure agreement type of way. Now, perhaps also there was like a non-circumvention or a non-compete integrated, and that just means in contract speak built into that contract to allow for additional protections for those types of disclosures to allow those two companies to do business with one another. And it's the non-compete, non-disclose, non-circumvent. Those are the non-compete one, that's very often later. That comes into an employment context. The non-disclosure, many people haven't done. Many of the people that get into the industry are startups. They are coming in from another industry, and this is their first grow or their first dispensary. And so therefore, there's a lot of proprietary technologies, a lot of proprietary and confidential information by operators in the cannabis space. And so they may want protection for their SOPs, like you mentioned. And that's one of the things that the non-disclosures and the non-competes do. They help define what is the confidential or the proprietary information. They help define who else, and you may have been one of the agents of the person who actually signed as their employee. And that might have been like a reasonable disclosure or included in the receiving party's definition because you would have been an affiliate. And that's the thing that these non-disclosures do. They can define the parties. They can define the information that's subject to the agreement. They can also define liquidated damages for the unauthorized release of those. And it's very often one of the first contracts that you see when parties begin to work with one another.
Is that like how you get paid in case they don't get paid?
It's how do you protect your confidential information in case they just signed the contract to get access to your information and never intended to keep their word.
Interesting, because I've seen that, that's just obviously IP theft, and then I've seen companies where, like GE or GM rather, when I worked at Raytheon. Before I worked at Raytheon, that sole company itself, the missile division, sold by many hands. And at one point, no, it was GM that bought them. GM bought Raytheon, or not Raytheon, but the missile division at one time, just for tech, just for their radar tech. Like, when your car backs up and then it sees a kid before it hits that kid, that's from fucking radar technology, right? So they bought it just for that one purpose. Then they sold it back. Like, okay, we got what we need. We don't need to be involved in the defense systems. It's an interesting way how people get IP, though.
It is. Speaking of IP, this podcast and this YouTube channel, a form of it is IP. We do have a copyright. Granted, we have an agreement with the provider that we are beaming this out, and thank you for all joining us. I wanted to end the show with looking back 2 years later when we were told to shelter in place, and I said, that's it, I'm not cutting my hair. Here I am. 2 years ago, doing a scripted video. I really don't get to do these as much anymore. I've just been too busy, but now that we're working on getting the business off the ground, I hope that I can start doing them again. But look at how short my hair was 2 freaking years ago. This was like when we were told to shelter in place. And now, years later, 2 of them, because this was March 21st and it's the 16th, I look like this guy. I might go get that haircut again because, it's now time to get back to work and to do things. It's not just time to be sheltered in place. And that was one of the first videos that we did that was immediately marked 18 plus. This is the most recent video that we've done that was immediately marked 18 plus.
Pizza.